Hi, everybody. We are live. We are live. We are live. We are live. This is the Mind His Business broadcast. And I'm pushing the go live button right now. And let's go live. It should be saying 3, 2, 1. And while that's going, I want you to make sure that you are sharing this with your friends and associates on social media. Hello, everybody. I am Lady J.
And this is your girl, LuvLuv.
And we are doing the live stream. We're going to
What's
go
up,
live
everybody?
on 100.3 FM in 52 seconds. So this should give you a couple of seconds to get on board while we get ready. So I'm going to turn up the microphones, and we're going to make this thing happen. Let me make sure that my camera is facing me and facing us. I think I did this wrong here. I think my camera is going the wrong direction here. Let me see. Okay, I think I'm looking at myself now. Hopefully you see me and I see you. Yeah, that's looking pretty good right there. All right, let me make sure both of us are on the shot though. Can you see me? I can see you. All right. So we got a lot of stuff going on today. A lot of things going on in the world right now. Hopefully I won't get a copyright strike from that music in the background. But that I gotta have it up at least enough to know. Here we go. Here we go. Well, you know what time it is. It's your girl, Lady J.
And your girl, LuvLuv.
And I'm bumping cameras and messing stuff up here in the studio. I got everything going. I'm very pleased to be able to say that I've got both Facebook and YouTube going at the same time right here on our radio broadcast, Mind His Business. All right, now I got my microphone up. I'm looking at the camera. You can always follow us on Mind His Business. That's our social media handle on all social media platforms. You can also follow the radio station at Gospel Music Omaha. The only difference is that on Twitter, it's Gospel Music OMA because they don't give you that many characters on your Twitter name. So Gospel Music Omaha is the social media profile for the radio station. Mind His Business is the social media profile for our program. And we're building the website. We're taking all of the old broadcasts that we did for 3 years of the Ready for Impact show, and we're getting those ready. So that website is ready number 4 impact.com. And we're setting up all of our social media profiles so that you can access all of the previous episodes that we did for Ready for Impact. So with that in mind, there is so much going on in the world. There's so much going on in politics. There's so much going on in the social internets and interwebs and things going on for Black Americans and white Americans and all the other nationalities that are in America. And there's a lot to talk about. And we do our best not to get too political on our radio station, only because we know politics is very personal. And we know that people have lots of different points of view, and we know that not everybody thinks the same way. It's not something that should divide us, but nonetheless, some people are very, very sensitive about politics. So we do try to be sensitive when we're over the air about politics. So with that in mind, we may say some things that do reference politics. However, we're not here to promote one candidate or the other candidate or some other candidate. We do encourage everyone to pray for our leaders, to pray for this election, and to do your research so that you are an informed voter. And don't just do the research that confirms the stuff you already know. Do the other research also so that you have a fully informed opinion before you go in to vote.
I don't think they care about that. I think a lot of them just want to get Trump out of there. I think that's...
Well, I was explaining this yesterday.
Check test.
I was explaining this yesterday.
Check test. Mic 1 2. Mic 1 2.
I was explaining this. It don't say check 1 2 over the air.
Check microphone 1 1 2. Hold on, let's see if this is even plugged in.
I was
It
explaining.
is, but
I-
hmm.
I was explaining to someone yesterday that there is a difference between a wedding and a marriage. So a lot of times you watch these TV shows and it's all about the wedding. You know, you got Bridezilla or you got what is that show called?
Yeah, that's the
Married
name of
at
it.
First Sight and all these other shows.
Oh yeah, that's another one.
And so many of these shows are focused on the wedding and how beautiful the wedding is and how much detail went into the bride's dress or how, you know, all the different place settings and the invitations and all the things that go along with a wedding. But not as much attention in our culture is really spent on the marriage part. See, the wedding is a one-time event. It happens and then it's over with. But then you got to live with that person and wake up to that person and see all the things that maybe you didn't see because you were so wound up in your emotions that there might have been some red flags about that person that you ignored because of your infatuation and your desire to have this storybook wedding. I think politics is kind of like that. I think that political ads or social media posts tend to sway people one way or the other, and they get you riled up and emotionally hyped for your favorite candidate, whoever that is. Well, that's like the wedding. You know, election day is coming, and that's like the wedding ceremony.
Most
where
of
we
them are
all
already
go.
shacking anyways.
That's where we. So the election day is kind of like the wedding. You know, we're building up to it. There's all this anticipation. We're going through the wedding rehearsal dinners, and we're doing all that stuff. But how many of us are taking time to really vet our favorite candidate out to see, is this going to be somebody that's going to be a good marriage partner after the wedding? So for all the people that say that Joe Biden is our guy, let's just get Trump out, and they're not saying that because they've really researched any of his specific policies or platform or accomplishments, but they're just saying it because they want Trump out. Well, that's like saying, you know, I don't like my current husband, so I want to get a new husband. But if you're not careful, you might get a husband that ain't gonna do nothing for you. Joe Biden
Oh, he's gonna do something all right.
he said publicly that if he is elected, that nothing will change. That's a direct quote from him. So that's concerning to me. Now, on the other side of the house, you have folks that are very strong Trump supporters, and they say, we've been married to this man for 4 years, and yeah, he's got some warts and dings and divots, but overall, we like.
He's the devil we know as opposed to the devil we don't know.
That's what Ben Johnson said, the founder of BET.
Oh, really?
That's exactly what he said. He said, you know, if I have to choose as a businessman, and I've seen things that he's done or whatever as far as business, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. I don't know. What he said was, I don't know what Joe Biden's policies are. I haven't heard him say anything specific about what he's going to do for black folks or for business or for pretty much anything. So,
I didn't know you could skip questions though with the moderator.
So,
I didn't know you could not answer.
I don't know.
There was a couple of questions that Biden
well, he
was
said directly in the debate, I'm not going to answer that question. Well, why are you not going to answer the question?
Is that allowed?
Doesn't America want to know that?
I'm just asking, is that allowed?
I don't know. So
must be.
So now, before you go turning off the radio saying, "Oh my gosh, they're Trump supporters," no,
don't do it.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, somebody actually, I had someone ask.
But we're not Biden supporters either. It's like, we're just trying to say, be informed, and please, whatever you do, please go to the polls and vote.
That is what we're saying. I had somebody ask me, well, why are you a Trump supporter? I said, I know what they said. Why are you pro-Trump? And I said, I'm not pro-Trump. I'm pro-black. So all of politics is an exchange. Okay, right? They're supposed to do something or promise something to you, and in exchange, you're supposed to deliver your vote to them. All of politics is an exchange. And so the way it's supposed to work is you listen to what the politicians are saying they're going to give you, if I can just be blunt about it, and then you give them your vote. And what is supposed to happen is you're supposed to keep them accountable to the things they promised or the things that they have delivered. So when you're making your decision, don't just make the decision on you don't like this guy or you don't like the other guy. That's emotions.
Jackie, stop wasting your breath.
That's emotions. What you want to do is for all of the candidates, you want to go back and you want to say, okay, what exactly are they offering me in exchange for my vote? This is something that Ice Cube, the rapper Ice Cube, brought up a few weeks ago when he set forth the contract with Black America. His commentary was, I'm not just going to vote Democrat just because Black people vote Democrat. I want to know what are the Democrats going to deliver to me as being the constituent of a Black person. So he put forth a contract with Black America. I was quite interested in what the provisions of that contract was.
But that's someone who is intelligent and who wants to say, hey, look, I'm going to look into this thing.
Well, our listeners are intelligent, and our listeners
Right.
are
Oh yeah, I believe it.
absolutely, because
Absolutely, I do believe it.
I don't think that people, if given all of the facts and all the information from all the perspectives, if they're being honest, I don't think that they are just going to dismiss a lot of that information just because emotionally they feel a certain kind of way.
Now, I'm a barber, and so I'm telling you, I'm going to say 89% of them said, I don't care what the issues are. I'm just voting Biden. That's what they said. And I'm like, whoa. I said, now wait a second. You probably should be asking the Lord who to vote for.
There you go.
What? I said, you should be asking the Lord. It's not about who you want to vote for. It's who is the Lord telling you to vote for. Oh, come on, love. I said, I'm serious. I'm not playing no games. You need to ask the Lord. Lord, who do you want me to vote for? And you should do research and understand what's going on behind the scenes. Don't put your head, if you will, underneath the cover and pretend it's going to go away. It's not. And so I was picking, but I meant it. When you go to the polls, pray. Lord, who do you want me to vote for? And really just listen to him. Pray before you go or whatever have you. And not just, oh, this is what my heart is telling me. Pray.
So with that in mind, I really don't wish to discuss politics for a whole hour because that's
I'm going to
boring.
say, I'm going to say what I want to say. You shouldn't be wishing for Trump to die.
Well,
now I'm gonna say that. Then we can get off the subject.
Okay.
We shouldn't wish that anybody drop dead. No. I don't care. I don't care. That should not be. I think you lost like over 40 friends over that.
No, not
well,
that
they weren't really friends if you lost them because they want somebody to drop dead and die. No, no, negative.
I don't stay friends with people who want somebody to die. I'm a believer, and there are some lines that should not be crossed. I don't care how bad of an enemy that person is. I'm not rejoicing in their death. That's terrible. That's horrible. No one who loves humanity should ever feel that way, no matter how badly you feel about a person.
And there's some bad people out there.
But a lot of that is the media is doing its job. There's a documentary on Netflix, and if you have a Netflix account, I want to encourage you to watch a documentary that's out right now. It's called The Social Dilemma. The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. I'll say it one more time. The Social Dilemma. What the documentary is about is how social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of that, is designed to get you to think certain ways, and how powerful social media is to sway or change or manipulate people's opinions. So I would encourage you, take a look at that documentary. Your eyes will be open. You will be really shocked, and it will challenge you about how many of the thoughts that you currently hold are not even your own thoughts. They're thoughts that are being designed and steered by social media. So when I get on Facebook, I get lots and lots of posts, but most of them are always from the same 20 or 30 people. And then I get ads that come on, and they're always trying to get me to buy something. And then I'm looking at people, and it just can get really depressing if you don't take a detox from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a verse in Proverbs. Let me see if I can pull that up here. There's several verses in Proverbs, and I'm going to start right here in Proverbs chapter 2. Proverbs chapter 2, starting in verse 10. It says, this is Proverbs chapter 2, verse 10. When wisdom enters into your heart and knowledge is pleasant unto your soul, discretion shall preserve you, understanding will keep you, to deliver you from the way of the evil man and from the man that speaketh froward things, who leave the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice to do evil and delight in the frowardness of the wicked, whose ways are crooked and they froward in their paths. That word froward, not forward. See, in English we use the word forward, but in the Bible language, in the King James Bible, it uses the word froward, Froward, and it means to turn aside or to depart or to be perverted, perverseness. Okay, so when you see the word froward, it's like a person is going to and fro everywhere they're supposed to be except for the place they're supposed to be. So that word froward means perverseness or wickedness. So when you see where it says, who rejoice to do evil and delight in the frowardness of the wicked, it's talking about people who enjoy other people doing wicked things. So if I have someone in my social media friends who is making posts that's saying, well, he said it is what it is, so it is what it is. If he die, oh well. That's basically saying you're rejoicing in something bad and evil happening to another human being. I would never wish something evil to happen on another human being. If they receive consequences for their actions, that's God's business. But I'm not getting up rejoicing in that, because something as serious as COVID-19, that was something that was, I believe it was biological warfare, personally. I think that it was something that was started in a lab in China. And I do think that any deaths that have happened according to COVID have happened because of this biological warfare that has been released by one of our international enemies. That's what I think. And so COVID does not have a moral code. If you believe social media, you think that the only people that catch COVID is bad people, and that COVID doesn't care, like you won't catch COVID if you're protesting for police brutality, but you will catch COVID if you're a president I don't like. See, it's like this double standard sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
And it's not cool.
Yeah. Or if he should pass away, see, that's what God will do to you. That's how God will work with you.
So,
but on the other hand, we were talking about what if he was to pass away from COVID, or just because he's, it's time for him to go. Then who then becomes president?
That's a really good question. The verse that I was looking for, I want to stick a pin in that. I want to read this one verse, and then after that, that's an excellent topic what you just brought up there. Proverbs 24:17 is the second verse that I mentioned that I was going to bring up today. And this is in Proverbs chapter 24, verse 17. And let's see. Rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, and let not thine heart be glad when he stumbleth, lest the Lord see it, and it displease him, and he turn his wrath away from him. Fret not thyself because of evil men, neither be thou envious at the wicked, for there shall be no reward to the evil man, and the candle of the wicked shall be put out. Let me go back to verse
Read
17.
that once again, please. And can you read it slower?
I'm going to read it really slowly.
Thank you.
Proverbs 24:17. So for all the people that are hoping and wishing and wanting the president to die of COVID, this verse is for you.
Or wishing somebody else would die.
Or anybody else.
Yeah.
It says, don't rejoice when your enemy falls, and don't let your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it, and it displeases him, and he turns away his wrath from him. In plain English, basically, if you wish death upon the president because you feel like he's your enemy.
No, if you go, bastard sucker. Good for him, good for him.
The Lord will see it and turn away his wrath from him. So in other words, well, I was going to handle this wicked person, but since you stood in my place of judgment over him, I'm going to take my wrath off of that person, because now you're the one that's pronouncing the judgment over him rather than allowing me to do my job.
There you go.
Do you get it? Bloop. So if you really do think that he's your enemy, you should not be rejoicing in his illness, because I guarantee you the Lord can handle your enemies way better than you and I can.
Or if he see you rejoicing in it, then he's like, okay, I'm a withdraw my anger, you know, my kindled fire against them, and
that's what it's saying.
He might be looking at you then instead of.
That's what it's saying. That's what it's saying.
He might light a fire under you.
So I just want to put that pin out there real quick. There's some really good commentary about rejoicing over the death of the wicked. There's a good website called BibleArchive.com where it has a article called "Should Christians Rejoice Over the Death of the Wicked?" So it's important that God is more interested in our heart.
Yeah.
He's more interested in our heart than anything. And a true believer, I'm talking about if you really love the Lord and you really have received his forgiveness and you really understand the gift that he has given, you want everyone to have that same opportunity to repent, to have mercy, to have grace, to be saved, to know God, to change their life. That's one of the hardest things for me to do. I'll just put that flat out there. There are some people that I don't particularly care for. And my mother, who has been a believer for longer than I have, will always find a way to convict me by saying, have you prayed for that person? And not the prayer like, oh, I pray they would die. Not that prayer. But I can always hear my mother say, have you prayed for them? Well, I can't stand so-and-so. I wouldn't care if they was off the face of the earth. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, here come my mama. Have you prayed for them? Have you asked God to save them, to change their heart, to give them the same grace that he has given to you?
Or like when we were in the barbershop, and what did I say to the lady? She was like, oh, and so and so and so. And oh, and I'll pee on their grave when they die. And oh, and oh. And then all of a sudden, I mean, everybody was just loud. And then all of a sudden, well, what did I say? Have you, no, I didn't say have you prayed for them. I said, have you forgiven them? I think that's what I said.
Yeah, you said, have you forgiven them?
It was like crickets. It was like.
The hardest thing for a believer to do, actually, it's not a hard thing to do if you really, truly understand the gift of salvation that has been given to us by such a loving God. But it is the hardest thing sometimes to do, to pray for your enemy. That's the hardest thing to do, because we always feel so self-righteous. We feel like we are justified in hating this person, right? Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, he said, you've heard that it's been said you should love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Isn't that what the world tells us to do? Every TV show, every
No.
movie,
Love your
all your
no.
friends, it says you should love your neighbor and hate your enemy.
And vanquish. It's vanquish.
That too.
That's in the 48 laws of power.
But then Jesus,
Vanquish
Yahushua
them.
says, but I say unto you,
Mm-hmm.
love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, because he makes his sun, S-U-N, to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love them which love you, well, what reward do you have? Don't even the publicans do the same? In other words, the heathens? And if you salute your brethren only, what are you doing that's any better than anybody else? Don't even the publicans do that? Be you therefore perfect or mature, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect or mature. See, it's easy to love people who love us. And it's easy to hate people who we consider to be enemies. But when we understand that we are children of the Father and we are not children of this world and we're not children of this devil and that we operate by a different set of rules, then we understand that God is sovereign over all. And the answer is right in the text. So let me point it out to you again. It says, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Why? He gives you the answer, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, because here's the reason, because he makes his sun rise. He makes the sun rise on both the evil and on the good, and he sends rain on the just as well as on the unjust. What does that mean? That means that when we go to bed tonight, evil people are going to go to sleep. And most of them are probably going to sleep mighty fine, because they're not bothered by their sin. Righteous people are going to go to sleep. Some of us are going to sleep just fine because we trust the Lord. And some of us are going to be upset because we mad at our enemies. But when the morning comes, the sun is going to rise on both the evil and the righteous. Because why? Because God is the ultimate decider of everyone's ultimate fate. And if we don't trust that God is a righteous judge, then we will try to take that judgment into our own hands. And we will try to execute vengeance or judgment or whatever. Now, I'm not talking about the legal system. If somebody stole your TV, you have every right to take them to small claims court to get restitution for your TV. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the spiritual position of our hearts in which we have a tendency to want to stand as the judge, jury, and executioner of someone's eternal destination. Okay, so we have to trust that God is bigger than all of this. It doesn't mean that you're just a wimp and you just lay down and let everybody beat up on you. That's not what this is getting at. What this is getting at is that I don't have to accept someone doing me wrong, but nor is it my job to determine whether or not that person is saved, whether or not that person is going to heaven or hell, or whether or not it's my job to pronounce a spiritual judgment over that person. God is quite capable, because he says in Revelation that he has books. And when those books are open, everything that you have ever said or done is going to be written in those books. And we all, each and every one of us, will be judged by the contents of those books.
Especially if the blood hasn't covered it.
And if you are not covered under the blood of the risen Savior, Jesus Christ.
I don't want it. I don't want it, Jackie. I don't want to be found slipping.
Everything from the very first white lie that you told when you were 5 years old, all the way up into the last thing that you did and thought this morning, is all there. every word you said, every thought you had, every iniquity in your
Every
heart,
motive and intent.
every motive.
Mhm.
It's all
Intent of the
there.
heart.
And trust me when I tell you, God is going to make it all right one day. He's going to set it all right.
He gonna set it off. You said he gonna set it all right. He gonna set it off. That's what he gonna do. I don't want it. Look, look, you don't want it. You don't want it.
So
I don't want it.
I just want to encourage us because, you know, this social media is designed to whip us up into a frenzy. You know, these political campaigns, they're designed to get us hyped up because they want you to get out and vote. And they know that if they can get you emotionally charged, then that will motivate you to go to the polls. Because do you know what is the opposite of love? It's the opposite of love is not hate.
That's right.
Did you know that?
That's right.
The opposite of love is indifference.
Mm-hmm.
Because a person that hates you that much, there's something they love at the same time that is in equal measure to the hatred they're displaying towards you. And think that through for just a second. If I really, really want to show my dislike for somebody, I just ignore them. Because the opposite of love is indifference. Whether or not you love somebody or you hate somebody, it's that strong passion. It's the same. It's just you're placing it one way or the other. But indifference is the opposite. See, Jesus is probably the most loved and most hated person in modern history. Everybody either really loves him or they really, really hate him. But nobody is indifferent toward him. Everybody has a thought. And as a matter of fact, Yahushua, Jesus himself, said, "Who do men say that I am?" That was the biggest question. And that's the biggest question right now. Who do you say he is? Because nobody says, well, I don't think about him at all. I don't care. He's not even a thought in my mind. No, when somebody says the word Jesus or Christian or Bible or
or when you get in trouble and you need for somebody to get you out of jail, oh Lord help me.
So if you really don't like President Trump, your best course of action is to just be indifferent. So if you see a post on social media that has the word Trump in it and immediately your emotions get triggered, then you know that you love something in a very large measure that's causing you to emotionally react to simply seeing 5 letters on a telephone screen. So you got to check. Why is this bothering me so much?
Man, that capital T, dang it. I see a T.
Well, same thing. Same thing. There's a vote on the ballot right now. There's a local vote. Now, for me personally, I believe that your local elections are way more important than who's the president. Who you voting in for these local positions, whether it's Douglas County Commissioner or school board or MUD board or dog catcher or whoever. Those are the people and the issues that are really the most important in how it affects yours and my daily life. So there's a measure on the ballot. Justin Wayne has introduced a measure on the ballot, and essentially it says that they want to remove the provision that says that slavery is not legal except in the case for punishment for a crime. Now, this is
which one is that? Look at the ballot number.
I can pull that up.
Bring it up. Thank you.
And there are people that are reacting because it has the word slavery in it. Oh my gosh, there's no way slavery should be on the ballot. How is slavery on the ballot in 2020? And we're mad and vote no because the white supremacists are trying to get slavery on the ballot because they're triggered by the word slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So let me help you out. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution is a federal amendment that is, you know what, let me pull up the text. Because we ain't doing nothing else. We talking chilling.
Well, where our information.
I want to read to you. I want to read to you the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution. This was set in place in 1865. This is what we call the amendment that abolished slavery. What people don't understand is that It didn't abolish slavery in all cases, in all instances. So technically, slavery is still allowed by the U.S. Constitution. The 13th
And you have to
Amendment.
be careful when you open up an amendment to change it, or
Well,
you
you're
try.
getting ahead. You're
Oh,
getting ahead,
sorry.
but
Let me
it's
cool
okay.
back. Let me cool back.
So I want to read the exact text of the 13th Amendment. All right. So
It's gonna be quite a bit. You might want.
it's not long.
Okay. That's
Text. All right. 13th Amendment states, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction.
so you're just reading that section. You're not reading section 2, section 3.
No, this is the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Section 1. It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. In Section 2, Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
Now that right there
in plain
means per state.
What this is saying is that slavery is abolished unless you are convicted of a crime, at which point in time you can be used, you can either be enslaved or used for involuntary servitude if you have been convicted of a crime. This is part of the reason why so many laws have been cropping up on the books, such as the 1994 crime bill put in place by Mr. Joe Biden. He authored the bill. By the way, he was very good friends with Mr. Robert Byrd, who was the leader of the KKK. He spoke at his funeral. He's said that he was pro-segregation and that he didn't want his children going to schools with black kids because he didn't want them to be in a racial jungle. So once they abolished slavery in 1865, they left this little tiny clause in there that says, okay, we're done with slavery and involuntary servitude unless you've been convicted of a crime. So what the result is that if you believe that white supremacy is a thing, then you will do your research and you will see that they've been incarcerating African Americans at a much higher rate. So basically, well, we can't enslave them anymore, but we can imprison them. And once they've been convicted of a crime, we can put them in jail and we can have them work for $3 a day. And we can do what's called convict leasing, which is essentially involuntary servitude, where if you're in prison, you can be leased out and not be compensated for your labor. That's slavery. So now that we have set the table, I'm about to put some food on your plate. This is the federal law that is the amendment in the Constitution. However, each state, because remember, we're called the United States of America. So each one of us 50 states is like, we're kind of like our own country. But all of us have agreed to abide by federal laws. So each state has to write their own laws to match what is in the federal law. So just because something is put in federal law does not automatically change the laws on the books in state law.
That's right.
Okay, so follow with me because this is the appetizer. We're about to get to the main course. In 1875, Nebraska agreed to change our text to say the same thing as the 13th Amendment. So we came in line with what the federal government said. Federal government said we're abolishing slavery unless it's conviction of a crime. And Nebraska said, we agree with that. We're going to put on our books the same type of amendment that we're abolishing slavery except as punishment for a crime. Fast forward to Mr. Justin Wayne. He has introduced a bill to say, we want to get rid of that little loophole about the punishment for a crime part. We don't want slavery at all, under any circumstances. We don't care if you've been convicted of a crime or not. No one should be able to be enslaved, period.
And that's a problem for those, for them, because there's money behind it. I'm praying for you, Justin. Pray for your life.
So,
Pray for your life.
so what this bill will do is it will take out that little part that says, except as punishment for a crime. That's what the bill is doing. So, in other words, it makes Nebraska's law better than the 13th Amendment.
It would make it better
If we all
And
vote yes.
if we vote yes.
So,
Because that goes for everybody or anybody who has been convicted of a crime.
yeah, so just because you see the word slavery, don't get triggered. Okay, don't get triggered. Oh my gosh, slavery is on the ballot. Say no, because see, this is how most people think. Slavery is bad, so anything that has the word slavery in it, I should say no to it.
No, they don't read it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
You gotta read.
phonics work for me. You know.
So let me read you from the actual AP News article.
Mhm.
So this hit national news. This was on the Associated Press.
Yeah.
And it says Nebraska measure would ban slavery as criminal punishment. A Nebraska lawmaker wants to close a 143-year-old loophole in the state constitution that allows people to be enslaved as punishment for a crime. Senator Justin Wayne of Omaha says he will introduce a ballot proposal to amend the Nebraska Constitution during the legislative session that begins Wednesday. The state constitution, because remember, we have a national constitution and each state has their own state constitution. So that's what we're amending. The state constitution has banned slavery and involuntary servitude since 1875, except as punishment for a crime.
Mhm.
Mr. Justin Wayne says the loophole was used to force former slaves back into unpaid labor for private parties, a system known as convict leasing.
Mhm.
Mr. Wayne says the Constitution serves as the moral and legal foundation for Nebraska's laws, and removing the language shows that slavery is not a Nebraska value. The measure would need approval from the legislator and the voters to take effect. So this is probably about as political as I'm going to get. I'm going to tell you to vote yes for this measure because slavery is wrong and we should not leave any loopholes to allow convict leasing or allow involuntary servitude and slavery, and to use our prison system as our excuse to wrongfully enslave people or not pay them for their labor. So there you go.
You said it. You said it.
So I guess the whole point or the gist here is that don't get triggered by a word. Don't let a simple word control your emotions so much that you stop thinking. Read, do your research, look at all sides of the issue, pray, listen to the Holy Spirit, and then make your decision accordingly. That's my encouragement to you.
What a lot of people just heard was, stop my money. You gonna stop my money? You gonna stop my money because you're gonna stop all of my catalogs, and because people don't know how much money is really made off of people in prison. Now, notice I didn't say black and brown. I just said completely off of people, because you have people of black and brown, green, you name it, they're in there. Except for I don't know of any, I don't know of any Mandarin or Asians in there, but I'm being funny. But sincerely, this is really and if it's voted no on, then you actually know what's probably always been for a long time, because nobody else has proposed this bill except for Justin, and I really love him. He's a really awesome guy, and he's very bold, I might add. I'm definitely gonna pray for him, because when you start messing with people's money, people get really, really funny, and a lot of people have been making money off of this for quite some time. A lot of money, not a little bit, a lot. And so when you start messing with people's money, that becomes a problem for people.
So the other issue that's on that is hot on people's minds right now is that our president has tested positive for COVID-19, and I'm going to.
I'll get it. You go ahead. I can see it. You go ahead.
So people are rightfully worried.
There's a spider, so we're gonna kill this big spider. Because if he don't, he gonna probably
Man,
try to kill
that
us.
thing is big like a grain of rice. What are you talking about big? That's a little spider. To you, every bug is big.
Okay. And that's why okay, y'all, I'm about to commit murder right now, y'all. God forgive me, okay? God forgive me, because look at them fangs on that mother. Woo! You can go ahead and, hey, hi, how are ya? Hey, doing? Me?
So
it's going downtown, Julie Brown.
All right, so let me get to the big question that has been on a lot of people's minds. Considering that both Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump are over the age of 70, they are both in high risk categories for COVID-19 mortality. President Trump has recently tested positive for COVID-19, and so people want to know, well, what would happen if he died? So we've been talking about, well, you shouldn't wish death upon anybody, right? But what if, God forbid, what if that did happen? Yes, she got the spider, y'all. She got it. She got it.
We're having a funeral.
What would happen to the election if he died or becomes incapacitated? Well, you kind of have to break it up into two different parts. The first part is, and this is a God forbid scenario. I hope this would never happen. I hope it doesn't happen to either one of the candidates. I wish for a speedy recovery for Mr. Trump, and I also wish that Mr. Biden does not catch COVID-19. So let me put that out there first, because I don't want anyone to get it misconstrued that I would wish death upon either candidate.
No way.
So there are two possible scenarios. If President Trump were to die before November 3rd, or if he were to die after we all vote on November 3rd, but before he formally takes the office on January 20th of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two different scenarios at play. The same thing would be true. Let's say that Joe Biden would have the misfortune of catching COVID, and he won the election. You know, he won the election, but he died before he could take office on January 20th. Okay, so this could go either way. But right now, Mr. Trump has tested positive, so we're going to use him as our scenario. So if he were to pass away before November 3rd, Mr. Mike Pence, the vice president, would assume temporary president. He would become the interim president, or the temporary president. This is just the way it always works. If a president dies, then the vice president becomes the president. That's standard. So if he were to pass away, Mike Pence would become president. If Mike Pence then were to pass away from COVID, God forbid, the next person in line would be the Speaker of the House, which currently that is Miss Nancy Pelosi. And if she were to catch COVID and pass away, it would then go to the President of the Senate, and then several cabinet members, and then it would go on down the line from there. So,
and if something happened to Pence, you have to say that one. I
did. I said that Nancy Pelosi would be third in line. She would be next.
Or did you say
Yes.
Biden? I thought you said Biden.
No, I said Pence. If I misspoke, let me say it again to make sure I'm clear. If the president were to pass away, Mike Pence, the vice president, would become the president throughout the duration of the term. If Mike Pence then also passed away, the Speaker of the House would be Nancy Pelosi. She would then become the temporary president for the rest of the term. If she then caught COVID, it would go to the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate.
Okay.
And then it would continue on down. There's several cabinet members. It would go all the way down the road. God forbid that should happen. But
Biden.
Well, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So we know who would run the office between now and January 20th if he were to pass away at any time between now and then. But your question is, well, what happens to the election? Do we still have an election? Is he still on the ballot? Those sort of questions. That's what we're going to get into here in the next 10 minutes. So first of all, his name would still stay on the ballot. And the reason for that is because they've already mailed out absentee ballots. Early voting has already started. Mail-in ballots have been put out there. And for those of you that have confusion about that, there's a difference between an absentee ballot and a mail-in ballot. An absentee ballot is one that you, as the voter, you contact the election commission and you say, please send me a ballot, I need to vote absentee. They send it to you because you're already a verified voter and you request the ballot. You solicit that ballot. A mail-in ballot is an unsolicited ballot. What it is they send out a ballot to every household, and whoever's name is on there, they try to get it right. Sometimes people who are deceased get ballots. Sometimes people who don't even live there anymore get ballots. So it's a much less stable and secure way to do voting. That's why there's so much controversy over the mail-in ballots. Notice there is a big difference between an absentee ballot, which is one you personally request and they send to you, versus a shotgun scatter shot. We're just going to send a ballot to every household and hopefully people will be there and they'll turn it in. Okay, so now let me set that aside. The point here is that because early voting has already started, they will not remove Trump's name from the ballot, even if he passes away. So what happens to those votes? What if he gets all the votes and he wins the election, even though he is deceased? If that were to happen, the Republican Party would hold an emergency session and they would choose who their electoral votes would go to.
Right.
So they would select a person to give those votes to from the Republican side.
Right.
So I'm going to read an article from the U.S. News from Republican Party.
Biden is
and if
not Republican.
Biden is on the Democrat Party,
right.
The same thing would likely apply. So let's say Biden wins the election, but for some reason he passes away. But the election has already happened. The Democrats would then have an emergency session and they would say all the electoral votes that were scheduled to go toward Biden, we are all now agreeing to put those votes to this other candidate that they would select.
Not Kamala.
No, because she's on as the vice president and Mike Pence is on as the vice president.
Okay.
So they can't be both. They can't win the vice president and president.
Okay. It's
party rules.
There you go.
So the first question is would the election be postponed? Let's say he passes away here in October. Would they postpone the election? It could be postponed, but that's unlikely to happen. The U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to determine the election date. Under U.S. law, the election takes place on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November every 4 years. The House of Representatives would probably object to delaying the election, even if the Senate voted and vice versa. The presidential election has never been postponed. If a candidate dies, both the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee have rules that call for their members to vote on a replacement nominee, which is what I just mentioned. So they wouldn't have time to replace either one of their candidates on the ballot because early voting is already going.
And I forgot there was one too, like if something happened to both of them. I forgot what they said.
So what happens if a candidate dies before the Electoral College votes?
I just heard the part with Pence, so I don't know after that what would,
Yeah. So the winner of the election is determined by securing a majority of Electoral College votes. Those Electoral College voters meet on December 14th to cast their votes. The winner must have at least 270 votes to win. So each state has Electoral College voters, and they vote to the winner of the state's popular vote. And then they would essentially have to choose how they would vote in the instance of a deceased candidate. So, of course, if that were to happen, whoever the losing side would be, they would challenge it in court. Let's see. The Constitution's 20th Amendment, our U.S. Constitution, says that the vice president-elect becomes the president if the president-elect dies before Inauguration Day. So that's kind of interesting. So if Pence were to win and Trump died on December 29th, then Pence would then become the president because it's past the electoral vote, past the election. So that's kind of interesting. If he passes away before the Electoral College casts their votes on December 14th, that's when those emergency sessions would take place for them to decide who they would want to send their votes toward. So that's kind of interesting. There's so much more in here. So it's dicey. It's dicey for sure. Hopefully that won't happen and we won't have to worry about it. So yeah, there's a lot. But the short answer is that if he were to pass away, Pence would run the country as president all the way up until Inauguration Day, and then depending upon whether or not he died before or after the Electoral College voted, there would be rules in place to either select an alternate candidate for those Electoral College votes, or if it was after that, then Pence would then continue on as president. So at least that's what I got out of it. Did you get something different out of it?
No, that's exactly it. That's why I asked, because I wanted people to know that was the subject in the barbershop this week.
Same thing would be true if Biden were to win the election and he died after the Electoral College voted, so after December 14th, then Kamala Harris then would take over since she would be the vice president elect, and she would then take over Joe Biden's spot as the president. So hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully we will have a clear winner, that we will have a fair election, that there is no election tampering or cheating. Well, that's what we should be praying for.
Of course, we can pray for
that
it.
we will have a peaceful.
Presidents are selected, not elected.
That we will have a peaceful and non-contentious election.
Pray for it. Sure.
We should be doing that.
Yeah,
we should be
pray
praying for a peaceful,
Absolutely.
non-contentious election in which the results are clear. That whoever the winner is gracious, and whoever the non-winner is equally as gracious, and that we as a nation can heal from divisiveness and we can move forward to be a righteous nation, whatever that is supposed to look like for this next period of time. I know that there are tens of thousands of Christians that are praying prayers of repentance for our nation, that are praying for peace in our nation, that are praying for healing in our nation, and I'm one of them. I don't like to see conflict and death and pain and rioting and dissatisfaction. We are still the greatest nation in this earth. There's a reason why there are so many immigrants from every other country that are clamoring to come here to this nation. It's because we have something to offer to the world, and I believe that even though we don't always remember that, when you consider that there are people out there in the world that still don't have running water. They're sleeping on dirt floors. They are laboring for pennies per day. They are growing old without food, medical care. And we have all of these things at the touch of a button on a phone, and we complain. I think our perspective needs some adjustment. I think we need to count our blessings. We need to remember that no matter how bad we think there's racial strife or white supremacy or injustice in our nation, this nation is still more opportunities. And yes, it was founded on moral principles and moral values, and that moral guideline that was part of the fabric of our nation has allowed us to be who we are. And if this nation ends up falling, it will fall from within, because we need to decide what we want to be as a nation. We need to decide if we want to be righteous as a nation or if we want to be wicked. We need to decide what values that are important to us. And we need to love one another, not the loosey-goosey kind of love that just tolerates every old kind of sin and wickedness, but the true love that stands up for truth, justice, that wants to fix wrongs. There's nothing worse for me as a Black woman than to see injustice in whatever form it takes. I want God to arise. I want his enemies to be scattered. And I trust that he's going to make it all right in the end. But I know that I thank God every day for all the blessings that I
Yes.
have. I could have been born anywhere.
Hallelujah.
I could have been born anywhere on earth. And for whatever reason, he put me here in the United States of America. And I don't take that for granted. I look at what's going on in the rest of the world, and I know that we are extremely blessed, and we should always keep our perspective in a good place and thank God for the good things. We spend a lot of time complaining about the bad stuff. Oh, police brutality. Oh, racism. Oh, injustice. Oh, poverty. Oh, this. Oh, that. But it's kind of like when you're in a family, like I can complain about my brothers and sisters, but you better not say nothing about them. Right?
No problem.
Right? You can complain about your auntie, uncle, whatever. But if anybody else comes saying something to them, y'all all about to jump them. That's the way it is. And that's the way we should be as America. Yes, we should work on the problems that we have inside of our nation. That's family business. But as far as understanding where we fit in the world, on the world stage, we got a lot of blessings, and we have a lot to offer, and we should not forget that. And we should thank God every day. You should thank God that you're here. It doesn't make us better than anybody else in any other nation, but it doesn't make us worse either. And I'm glad that I'm here. And I thank God for the blessings that he has given me as an American to even be a woman and speak on this radio. For God's sake, there are some nations in which me speaking on the radio would be a capital punishment offense. I could literally be killed for speaking out as a female in some nations. So yes, I thank God for the blessings of being here in America, and I will do everything I can to make her the best that she can be, meaning America, because this is where I live. This is where I lay my head. This is where I earn my living, and this is where I worship God. And if I worship God like I'm supposed to, I will pray for my leaders, and I will be an informed voter, whatever that means. I will be an informed voter, and I will do my best to, in a spirit of gratefulness, lead as many people as I can to the Lord and to bless them as much as I can while I have the ability to do so.
I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. That's how I feel about it.
So we bless you this week. We bless you every week. I
Amen.
pray that you will become closer to God this week than you were last week, and that each and every day you will know him more, and he will know you more because you want to be known by him. Allow him to change your life. Allow him to come into the deepest recesses of your heart. And if you don't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, simply ask him to be your Lord and Savior. Tell him that you believe that he died, he rose again, and you will be saved. It's as simple as that. And from there, he will lead you the rest of the way. All right,
Yes.
We'll send you back into the music. We're so glad that you were with us. Make sure you share this broadcast if you're watching on social media, and we'll see you next time.
Ciao.